We came to you in December talking about in an agreement that we signed in December with the declarant to help us get rid of a lot of inventory and jumpstart development, inventory of lots and jumpstart development down, especially south of Peavine. And as we get into it, there are several things that need to kind of start falling in place. We're going to talk about two of those things today. The first one is we're going to try to get through this today and sign an agreement with the declarant that will allow the declarant to buy county lots through our agreement that is with the county. Now, why is that important? I would like to tell you. All right, what am I doing wrong, John?
There goes. There goes.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So the purpose of this agreement is, and I'm not going to read this to you, I'm going to kind of give you my commentary on it. You can read it for yourself, and these will be posted, by the way, on the member site. The key thing is there's four groups of people that own lots. One is the county. They get lots back when people don't pay their taxes, and they take them over. The second large group is the community club. And those are people that either voluntarily come in, as a policy that we have in now, and voluntarily come in and say, look, I don't want my lot anymore, will you take it over? And if they're all up to date with their dues and they're up to date with other things, then we'll take those over. The third group is Wyndham. And for Wyndham, they have approximately 1,290 lots that they own still and control. And like our lots, the declarant has gotten into agreement with Wyndham for the sale of their lots to the developer to control those lots so that they can do the development of those. And then, of course, the final group is the privately owned lots themselves. That's probably the largest group, by the way. Most of the lots down there are owned by private individuals. So we can't do anything with those because that's up to the individual owner, what he or she wants to do with those lots. But the other three are ones that we can do something about. And in that regard, we took care of the lots that Fairfield Lake Community Club owns with the agreement that we talked about in December. And as I said before, the declarant has an agreement with Wyndham, and now we're going to try to take care of those that are owned by the county. So let's talk a little bit about how it works. A couple times a year, and it's not on a regular schedule because the county doesn't do it on a regular schedule, we get a number of lots per our agreement that we can buy if we want them, okay? And we get to do that prior to them going up for auction, which was the whole purpose of the agreement, for the club to get an opportunity to buy those before the county invests a whole lot of money in terms of the sale of those lots. So we get that a couple times a year. What the intention of this agreement is that we will give that list to the declarant, and the declarant will decide within 21 days, so we've time framed it. It's not you have all day to do this, and the county won't let us have all day because they wanted to put them up on auction if they're not going to be bought by us. So within 21 days of us getting the list over to the declarant, they will tell us if there's any lots that they wish to buy. Then what we'll do is we'll go back to the county and say, okay, here's the list of lots that we would like to buy, and what are the price of those lots? And the county will give us what the price is. And then we'll go back to the declarant and say, do you still want to buy them? Because now here's what the price is going to be. And if the declarant does want to buy them, then we will go on ahead and purchase those on behalf, well, we'll actually take ownership of them because that's the way the county agreement goes. And then within 45 days of that, taking possession, the declarant will buy those lots from us. Now, there's a couple little, there's one little nuance in there, and I want to make sure everyone understands it. Not all lots are buildable. I think you've lived here long enough that you know that if you drive around, there's some lots that you'll look at and there's probably no way that anyone's ever going to build on them, although I keep being told by some people that it's just a matter of how much money you want to invest. Well, that means they're not buildable for me, but at any rate, there's a couple of those that will always fall into the category that the county owns. And when we talked to Mayor Foster about this, he was pretty clear. He said, what I don't want the club to do is to take, and the numbers, there's 883 lots that the county owns that are C lots that are in all of this, okay? So this is the number for the whole campus, not even just the development, but the whole campus. And what he said is, we don't want you to be able to take 2 or 3 lots and stick the county with those. And so what we agreed to do is we would take those 2 or 3 lots along with the ones that the declarant wants, will be a much larger number that the declarant's going to take, and we would continue to own those lots so that the county gets out of that whole section and we take over a couple of lots, but the declarant really gets what the declarant's looking for, which is the majority of those lots so that we can continue to build. So what we did agree with the declarant is that in those cases where we've taken over a lot and it's probably not a buildable lot, a couple things can happen. One is we were going to look at it and see if that's a good place just to keep a green space or that type of thing in that area. Another option is the declarant may work with us in terms of saying, let's merge a couple of these lots so that I can make a larger footprint for a house to go on there. And that type of thing. So there'll be some conversation with the goal of even the lots that we take over because they're not quote unquote buildable, that the declarant will eventually, or someone will take those over and they'll get off our books as well. The key thing is, of course, is that the reason why we're doing this is because this is a way of generating income for the club. And I'm going to go over some figures with you just so you get a sense of that when I get into the second presentation. So that's it, what we're trying to do. So for this one, are there any questions? If you got a question, come on up.
So, Greg, I understand the mayor's position on those lots. So is he also then agreeing to waive the taxes, as minor as it might be, since they're unbuildable?
No, he's not, and I don't think he has the authority to do that. But it's really minimal. Right now, those lots are generating about $23 a year is what the cost is. And I understand what you're saying, Tom. We wouldn't like them, but if we take a look at getting 40 or more lots on the books for generating income, $23 for a couple lots is not going to kill us. Okay, so that's the purpose.
Nico Sergio again. Are we going to do the transfers in such a way that the community club doesn't get stuck with the title fees, and the title fees would just be paid by LGA or Tom Anderson and group?
Right. Good question. No, the intention is that all the fees for closings and that type of thing will be charged to the declarant. Also, and I will go back, maybe. Okay, if you read this, for every lot that we purchase on behalf of the declarant, we're going to get a $75 administrative fee for the work that our people have to do that, which is more than enough to cover our costs. So we're going to get a fee on every one of these as well. Okay? Don't forget to say your name.
I know. Good morning, Carrie Trees. So I have 2 questions in relation to this. First one, is the declarant going to pay what residents would be expected to pay for the lot merger fees?
We have not said that we're going to reduce any of the lot merger fees at this point.
Thank you. And the second question is, as anyone coming into the community, we would have to pay a $5,000 transfer fee into the POA community. Will those fees also be paid by the declarant to increase our revenue into our community?
Another good question. The answer is no, the declarant won't pay them. When the house is put up and developed, then and we do this with all our builders. So this is not just a thing we do with the declarant. As the house is developed and built, then as part of the closing on that house, the $5,000 fee will be paid. Okay? Any other questions? Come on up.
I'm Ralph Hart. The $5,000 fee, what was the intent of that? How was it decided on? What percentage of people voted for it? How many people even know it exists? And in a real estate market that's going south, and people are trying to do the best they can to buy and sell a home, does this make any sense in growing Fairfield Glade? It's very discriminatory, in my opinion, and I'm sure, again, people I talk to don't understand it or don't know about it.
The $5,000 amenity fee has been in effect since July 1st of 2024. Now, there was an amenity fee that was charged back as far back as 2012. So this is nothing new, it's just the value that changed. What we've been tracking, and if you've been to prior board meetings and workshops, we talk about this, we have been looking at every month whether or not the impact has been on the housing market in terms of what we get our fees for and that type of thing. We have not seen a negative impact at all on this. We've been tracking it now since July 1st, and as a matter of fact, we're slightly ahead of where we were over prior years. The fee was voted on by the board in June, or actually May, and put into effect on July 1st. So again, this is something that the board has been talked about. It's been posted. We put out frequently asked questions, so we try to do our best to communicate. If people don't know about it, right now the people that pay the fee, the intention is for the people that buy the home will pay the fee. So if you have a home and you're selling it, it would not be your fee to pay, it would be the person that's coming in. Okay? So, yeah.
Yes.
Nico Surge again. Has Tom Anderson done like a 10-year projection on how many homes will be built over the next 10 years, so we get some idea of how this is going to help our community with the $5,000 fees and the POA fees and that type of thing? Thank you.
Greg, I don't believe you addressed fully the other portion of the gentleman's question.
Okay, go on ahead.
He asked, the amenity reserve fee, sir, goes to the Amenity Reserve Fund, which funds all of the amenities that exist, their maintenance and future development of them. You and others that have been here over the years have paid into those amenities. So the intent of the amenity reserve fee is as a new resident comes in, they should contribute to all that is here for them to enjoy that's already in place. So their $5,000 contribution is for their enjoyment of the amenities that are here. It goes into that fund and it can only be used for those amenities. And it applies to all properties regardless of value of home or size of home, because all residents have equal access to those amenities. To charge separately based on your square footage or et cetera, that legal counsel has said would in fact be discriminatory. So it has to apply equally to all home buyers.
It seems to me that all these amenities, you go to play golf and it costs a fortune. When I first came here, golf was free at Druid. It was in the system. If they don't make enough money to pay for themselves, is it even legal to charge these extra fees to do that? Or is that not even a question? I'm not the smartest guy, I guess, in the neighborhood or in the room here, but it just doesn't seem fair and seems very discriminatory to me for some widow or some person that's been in the later years having to contend with a $5,000 fee that they get broadsided with when they need to sell their home just to keep things going for themselves.
Okay, let me give you a couple things on that one. Number one, the intention, again, is not the person selling the home, but the person buying the home would be paying the fee. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, in the past, what the club has done, we're mainly talking amenity fees. They're not, the amenity reserve fee does not go in necessarily to operations. It goes to capital, okay? So what the intention of that fee is, if we have to make large-scale improvements on an amenity, much like we did with the Racket Center a few years ago, much like we did with Stonehenge a couple years ago, much like we're talking about the racket sports with the pickleball courts, that we want those people who are going to enjoy those things, as Bill said, for a number of years to help with the payment. In the past, more or less, what the people sitting in this room, if you lived here, you paid for those amenities. They came out of your pocket. And people that were coming in were paying like $1,200 to get in to use that amenity. Now, it's nothing to do with the fees. It doesn't have anything to do with what it costs you to play golf on a daily basis or use the racket sports area or pickleball or any of that. So, and I think, I know, if you take a look at our fees for what we charge for the amenities, we're a real bargain. And that's just a fact. I would dare any of you to go over to Knoxville, Nashville, and be able to pay for an amenity like our golf courses and the quality of those, or our pickleball courts and the quality of those, or our pools or whatever, and be able to get in and pay what we pay here. It's a bargain. But the amenity reserve fee has nothing to do with the operations. It's got everything to do with the capital investments that we make to either build new amenities or improve the amenities we have. Okay?
How many people live here that do not participate in any of the amenities? I'm a boring fella, I guess. I don't play golf. I don't play pickleball. I don't ride a horse. I mind my own business and try to live a decent life. There's a lot of people, I think, that do the same thing.
Well, let me address that. Now you're on the operations side, and we are what's called a pay-to-play community. And what that means is the amenities for daily use, when you go out and play a round of golf, those are intended to cover the cost of the operations of that amenity. So, and they have in the past. The last 2 years, all the amenities really covered their costs. So, except for food and beverage, and that's a separate item, and that's a whole different discussion. But for those, so when you make the statement that I don't use that amenity, you're not paying for it. The people that use that amenity are the ones paying for the operation of that amenity.
Then why'd I pay the $5,000?
That's for capital infusions. So if we're going to build a new golf course, for instance, or we're building new pickleball courts, the $5,000 can only go for those kind of investments, not the daily use kind of things.
I've been into Druid Hill office there, center up there.
Come on.
Does it not perform its job? And I don't know, do people just go up there and hang out and do whatever? That building is in such a dilapidated condition, it needs to be replaced. It doesn't seem to me like it does, but now, again, I'm not up there enough to know, maybe. But, and again, in the people, young people and people that don't have a whole lot of money want to live in a safe place like this, in a beautiful place. I've been here since George Donovan came and started the place. But some people, it's just getting where people can't afford it, that deserve to be able to live in a nice place like this. Now, and if you want to play golf, fine, pay for it. Most of us will help with our monthly fees and all that, but maybe they don't go to that. I don't know how that exactly works. But there's a lot of people, I think, that $5,000 is a make or break whether they buy a home here, because that is negotiable at the real estate. That's not to say that that buyer is going to pay that fee. They're going to negotiate with a homeowner and say, well, I ain't going to buy your property. And people need to sell. They say, well, you know, I got to do what I got to do. And that's hard on a lot of people.
Okay. I'll just make a couple mentions. Number one, we do have to replace Druid Hills now because it's gone. It no longer exists. So that clubhouse is absolutely gone. If you go over there today, what you'll see is dirt. That's all. So we're going to replace that. But the second piece that I could, and I'm repeating myself, but I really want you to make sure that we try to have an understanding here. If you play golf, or you play pickleball, or you use the marinas, those fees that we collect from the people that use those amenities cover the cost of those amenities, okay? So we're not asking you, or your assessments really are not going to pay those amenities, okay? So that's number one. Number two, again, the $5,000, if a home seller wants to have that conversation with somebody and pay that fee, that's up to you. The intention is, and where we put it on the closing costs, is for the buyer, okay? Now, if you want to do something different, that's up to you, not us. We're going to charge the buyer unless we get different direction. So that's where we are with that, okay?
Why are you charging the buyer?
Because, again, no, it's more than just we can. It's what I would consider to be fairness for everyone sitting in this room that's a member. And the fairness piece comes in is for years, people moving into this community were not paying really for the investment of the things that we built in this community for their enjoyment. And we're trying to make that change so that everyone is equally paying. And just because you come in and we put new pickleball courts in, we want you to help contribute with some of that. So that's the purpose, okay? So.
Thank you.
It's legal.
Yes, it's legal. Been around since 2012.
But you're keeping a lot of people from being able to buy into this.
Well, that's what realtors and people told us, but the data is not supporting that comment. Yeah, we got to move on here too. Okay.
Back when I was chairman of the Financial Advisory Committee, thank God I'm not there anymore, we commissioned a reserve study. And what the reserve study does is say, here's all the property you own, here's what it's going to take to fix it over time. The board looked at that, and I think after they woke up from the unconsciousness, they said, we don't have enough capital. Right now we do, but in 2 or 3 years, we're going to go under, capital-wise. We're not going to be able to maintain our property. The Strategic Planning Committee took a look at funding options. Well, we're limited as a homeowners association to 25 cents on the dollar of assessments going to capital. Right now, you're paying about $19 a month to capital. If we wanted to take that to 25, we'd have to go up $24 a month. Is that right? Yeah, $24 a month to get $6 more of capital. The second way that we can get capital is to do a special assessment. Well, those are like secret words that cause everybody to light a torch and march in the street. Nobody wants to hear the word special assessment in a homeowners association. There's only one way left. It's the lot transfer fee, amenity reserve fee. Now, some communities, that fee is $25,000, $50,000. Go down to Florida and look at some of those properties. So it's been going now for about a year, and what we hoped would be the case has been the case, and that is the numbers, you can't tell on the graph of home builds and lot transfers where that took place. It's the same number of transactions, which means didn't really affect the market. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right. We're going to move on to the second piece. One of the things that's become clear is that we're going to have to look at changing the CNRs for the purpose of doing this type of development. Now, I'm going to go into a little bit on this, and I want to be real clear. We are not declaring today that an election is going to take place. There's, by our CNRs and bylaws, we have to give 60-day notice before an election takes place, and we're not making that declaration today. Okay. So why are we doing this? What's the purpose of what this amendment has to do? There are rights that are pointed out in the CNRs that for both the community and the declarant, and I'm not going to get into all those rights because they're not appropriate for this conversation. But the major ones I'll get into is for development, the club controls sewer. And there are provisions made in sewer and how we collect money for that sewer. If you don't pay what's called the availability fee, just like if you don't pay your dues, the community club can in fact put liens and eventually foreclose on your property if you don't make those payments. Now, the declarant in the CNRs, he has rights, and those rights are he controls whether or not a road goes in or not. He also controls if he needs to, and he gets approval really from Crab Orchard because they don't want to do it, he can put water in. And finally, there's other infrastructure that the declarant has been putting in as he's been doing recent development like broadband. If you go up to Chestnut Ridge, you go to Maple Ridge, those are getting broadband in as they put them in. So he does not have the right to collect or to charge directly the member or the member or anybody else that owns that property to get his money back. So in effect, what can happen is that we could get our money back and we can put liens and foreclosures on properties if they don't pay. He does not have that right currently, and that's what this is really trying to address. So why is this amendment important? I want to make a couple connections between what we agreed to and signed in December and what this agreement's going to do. And those connections are, the first and biggest one is the development south of Peavine is going to be the driver of how we're going to increase dues throughout this community. The potential here, and I'm going to give you a couple numbers. If you take a look at the February lots report, what you'll find is right now today, in terms of C lots, now these are all across the whole campus, we have 1,762 what are called C lots, and that's all we're talking about. We're not talking about A's or B's, they're strictly C lots. If we were to get this development done, that's an infusion of over $1 million per year in terms of assessments. That infusion is $1 million that we don't collect from current members. If you take a look at just the county lots, that's 883. And again, most of these, both in our case as a club and also from the county, are in the area that we're talking about developing. But that's around roughly about another $500,000. Now, I purposely didn't do the math exactly because we know that some of those lots are located outside that area and some of them are not going to be buildable. And what that means is that that's about $1.5 million infusion of the dues or the assessments that we would get on a given year once all this development is done. Now, it'll increase incrementally through the years as we do the building. It's not going to be all at once. The other thing is, if you just take a look, as we've been discussing, the $5,000 amenity fees, you're looking at another infusion of about $13 million when all this is done. These are not small numbers for us. And the fact of the matter is, as you saw with the 10-year plan, and as we grow, and our plan is to grow, if we just did what we're doing now, we grow by about 100 to 125 homes, new homes, every year. Well, as you can probably tell, if you go and use our amenities, that kind of growth is eventually going to catch up with us in terms of being available for members to be able to use the amenities. And as people come in, that's going to get very frustrating to them. So we're going to have to make some investments at different points here. And if we don't do the investments, then what's going to happen, if we do the investments without this development, the people sitting here and the 100 that we get about every year, those are going to be the people that are going to get charged for those assessments. that's going to get expensive fast. But if we're going to grow, it's going to happen. So this is very, very important. Without this CNR, it's quite likely that we would either have to take out additional loans, which will get clubs in trouble, and that's why we manage that, and our growth projections will be fairly well off mark. So some more information about why this is important. All we're asking in the CNR is wording for the declarant to be able to do exactly what the club does. If we put in sewer and the declarant puts in roads, water, infrastructure, there's a cost to that. And just like we charge all of our members when we put in sewer, and it's called an availability fee, we expect to get the cost of what it took us to do the sewer back out into the community so we can actually put in more sewer in different places right after we put it in. The intention here would be the same thing would happen with the declarant. So as roads are built, as infrastructure is put in, what would happen is that the declarant would bill directly to the residents, and the residents, or the owners, I should say, the owners would pay the declarant for those things that he puts in because he has control over them. Now, there's other things that go in. VEC would have to run electricity, and in most cases, you'd find Crab Orchard to be the one that's running the water. When we met with Crab Orchard and talked to them about this, by and large, unless there's a real reason they don't believe it's a good idea, the declarant would probably not be putting in water, in which case then he would go to Crab Orchard and say, look, I'm willing to pay for it, and the Crab Orchard would probably say, fine. So we're not asking for any additional opportunities that we don't have as a community. And this is really, if you take a look at it, currently we're building about 120, 125 homes per year. And along with the declarance agreements that we'd have for Fairfield Glade Community Club, Wyndham, and now the county lots, this will help ensure that we get a sustained, controlled growth. Now, someone said, well, Nico, to your question about, well, when are we going to see, what the projections are? There's a lot of conversation that we have to have as a community club about what we expect that projection to be. And what I mean by that is, how fast do we want to grow? And that's a fair conversation, all right? And we haven't had that yet. So it doesn't do us a whole lot of good to have that conversation until we have all the pieces together and know that we can really put the pedal to the metal to get the development done. What I would also tell you is that if we don't have this amendment, then what will probably happen is the development that we have planned will either be stalled or severely taken on a much smaller scale. So, that's another question we have to answer really as a community club. How fast do we want this to go? And there's implications both ways, whether we continue to do what we're doing or whether or not we want to accelerate that growth. But those are all good things to discuss because it means that we're going to be a growing community again. And for the life of me, what I don't understand necessarily is how all this stopped back in the 80s. If you take a look at the areas that we're talking about south of Peavine, those are all, by and large, mapped out areas, lots. They've been platted, and they've been sold. And people have had those lots for years, and they've never got a return on their investment. This will give them that opportunity, and that's important as well. So what are the next steps to this? We'll be announcing a special election for this CNR amendment to be held 60 days after that announcement. That's by our bylaws. You have to give 60-day notice for a special election. Our intention will be sometime between now and April, once we get all the wording on these declarations all done, we'll be sending out a special notice to all members, letting them know that this CNR is going to be in effect, or we're going to be voting on it. We will need, now this is very important for everybody to understand, we will need 3/4 of the property owners that vote on this amendment to say yes. That's not a small threshold. That's a pretty high one. So we're going to really do a full court effort to try to get people to understand why this is important to the community. And we need people that are coming to board meetings, workshops, committee meetings. We'll have board members be reaching out to other civic organizations and other organizations to make sure they understand the importance of this amendment passage. It will really have a dramatic effect on where we go as a community. And if it doesn't pass, then we're going to be thinking about a whole lot of other things in terms of costs going forward. So we're working on a comprehensive communication plan, and Shannon is going to be helping us a lot with that. And what that means is that we're going to be looking at all the different people and groups that we have to talk to and really trying to work through how exactly the best way to approach them is. And what we have to absolutely do, and I mean this just the way I'm saying it, we have to show to every member why this is a good thing for them. And it is. And that's our charge, is we have to get across to all of you why that's a good thing. We will set up an email, just like we did for Druid and Tom. We did try to respond to those. But we'll set up, just like we did for Druid, for members to be able to easily ask questions. We'll try to turn them around. My goal is always trying to turn them around within 72 hours of receipt of the question. Sometimes it takes longer on things. We have to do some research, but that's the goal. So we'll be setting that up. And I would say that we're planning on having a special election on this sometime probably late May, early June of 2025. And the election itself balloting will take place for probably about 3 weeks, something like that, 2-3 weeks, like we do for the directors' deals. Okay, so that's what we're talking about in the second presentation, the CNR amendment that we are going to encourage people to vote for. And what questions do you have? Come on out.
Eric Duncan, so forgive me, I did not come for this topic. I came for a different topic, but I do have a question. So timing is very important. I think I've seen in my life anyway. And my question is, it sounds like this is an expansive investment, right?
Yes.
Very large investment, which means it's going to take all of our money to do this, right? And there's a reliance, I think, that there's going to be a demand. There's an assumption, I think, that there's going to be a demand. So my question is, because we have a very uncertain economy, things really no one knows what's going to happen in the future, what would be the implications that if this large investment was made and for whatever reason people decided, because of the economy or other reasons, they decided that they couldn't afford to move here anymore. And now we're stuck with this, what could be tantamount to an upside down mortgage with no way to pay it off other than to raise, property taxes or other taxes on all of us here.
Okay, a good question, and that's one that should be on all of your minds. The answer is that the goal of the development, what I'm going to refer to as south of Peavine, would be a controlled, managed growth. So we're not going to go out and put in a whole bunch of roads or sewers or that kind of thing without actually developing the homes on them as we go along. So when I talk about pace, it's the pace of how quickly or how soon would we build homes. So the investments that we're making would be paid off as we actually start the development, okay? So there's no upfront cost other than what we do as a regular basis. For instance, when we decide to put in sewer in an area, we do the engineering studies, we take a look at whether or not there's a whole bunch of rock there, whether it's not a viable thing, and then only then do we actually start the construction of the sewer, because we know that that's where the homes are going to be developed. It'll be the same thing here. So there would be no intention, and I can't foresee a situation where we would have a deal where we'd have a whole bunch of roads built without the development following, because we wouldn't even start on the roads or the sewer or water or anything else until we knew that the actual development was going to start happening. Great. And that's really under the declarant's management, because it's up to the declarant to get the builders all lined up and do all of that prior to asking us to make any investments all.
Very good, thank you.
Because according to our CNRs, an amendment to the CNRs has to be voted on by the property owners, okay? I'm sorry, Scott.
I was just emphasizing, we're not talking about a capital investment.
No,
We're
no.
just talking about
That's right.
enabling growth because the property
That's
ownership
exactly
south
right.
of Peavine is different than
Yeah.
what it was in north of Peavine.
Exactly. And so it's just like we do with our own stuff. All we're really trying to do is give the same rights for mainly liens and foreclosures when someone doesn't pay that availability fee. Okay? All right? Tom?
Just in my mind, so I'm kind of understanding it. So let's say there's a group of lots, there's 100 of them in this first phase development. Some are going to be C, I'm assuming?
No, all of them will be C.
All would be C. Okay, that's the clarity I need. Thank you.
Yeah, remember again, when we talked about this in December, and the same way is true with the county lots, and the same thing's true with Wyndham, we're only talking about C lots in those areas that are in what we call Appendix A. So
Rick,
there's no Bs or As that are included in this.
Rick, can I just add
Yeah.
one point? So when you think about development like Hickory Ridge and what's the other one up there, Ellen? Chestnut Ridge. So that's a scenario where the developer owns all the lots. They go in there and build a road, so they're able to incorporate the cost of building that infrastructure in when they sell the lots.
Right.
South of Peavine, because how the community developed, there's individual owners of the lots. And so now, how do you enable development down there and investment in infrastructure? You want to, the CNR helps enable that growth by having an avenue to recover infrastructure expenses.
Okay? Any other questions? This is simpler than I thought. So you're going to be hearing a lot more about this. Also, to a question that was said earlier, our intention is at the April board meeting, just like we did in July, after the board meeting, we'll ask people, and I hope everyone stays, because we're going to cover two topics. Scott talked about one, the strategic planning committee's work, and the second one will be, we'll go through what the costs and estimates are for Druid, and talk about that project, because at that point, we'll be already started with it, and we really want to make sure the community understands what we said a couple of years ago and where we are today. So those will be special ones. If people don't want to stay, they'll be here for the board meeting, they can leave. But I would encourage you to try to come to those to get a good understanding of what we're doing with strategic planning and Druid. Okay? All right? Thank you.